Joining me is Jon Gelberg, Gelberg. He's the Chief Content Officer at Blue Fountain Media, which is an award-winning website design, development, and online marketing company headquartered here in Manhattan. Jon is an expert in online reputation management. Jon, welcome to News Talk Online on the Pal Talk News Network.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
Great having you with us. I presume by the time they call you, the cattle is out of the barn or out of the yard and roaming the range already, and they're calling you to do damage control.
I wouldn't necessarily make that assumption. I think a lot, obviously, when something bad comes up, people panic, and they've got to get something done and get it done immediately. But more often than not with clients, clients are coming in and just looking at their overall online presence in terms of themselves as individuals and businesses. And what they're trying to do is put the best foot forward. And that's a side, I think, of online reputation management that doesn't get talked about as much, because it's not quite as sexy. It's the prophylactic online reputation management. And, it's just taking care of business before the bad thing hits.
Right. Let's talk about the bad thing hitting, though, for a second, because, I have, on occasion, inadvertently set out on my Twitter feed, which I use for business. I use it to report to my followers the stories that I have posted on ReporterGary.com and at TheJewishReporter.com. And it's not been anything particularly embarrassing, but I have made a mistake. For example, I always put in a headline and the URL so that people can link back to the story. That's why I am doing it. And there have been occasions when I have not been able to, I thought I'd grabbed the URL, and I end up pasting the headline and the headline again and sending it. And I go, oh, my God. So I go and I delete it, and then I send it correctly. It's just a little technical error or operator error on my part, nothing particularly embarrassing. But I've always thought that once I recall that, I've actually deleted it. It's gone. Nobody can see it. But apparently that's not the case, because I think from my understanding of what Anthony Weiner did, that's exactly what he did, and yet that photograph made the rounds. How is that even possible?
It's what you said in the introduction. Once it's out there, it is out there. I mean, there are things that can be done in terms of, if you've got a photograph on a friend's Facebook page, you can beg them to take it down. But basically, once something is in the world, once something is out there, it's out there. The best thing you can do is to be honest and be transparent and just say, I screwed up, or oops, or make light of it. You see, the biggest trouble that Weiner got into, or among the biggest problems he got into, was the fact that he lied, and he continued to lie until there was so much evidence that he couldn't lie anymore.
Right. And sometimes you make an excellent point, though, Jon. Sometimes it's out of the control of the individual, because you could be someplace, somebody can photograph you, and then they tag you on Facebook. That is, they take a photograph of you, and they put it on Facebook, and they tag your name. Here I am with Gary Baumgarten. Little do I know that when that person tags my name, that photograph of mine is sent out to everybody on my list.
Well,
is that right?
The problem with that, the good news, there is actually good news on that.
Yes.
Is that 99.999% of us have been stupid at one time or another, and someone has gotten a picture of us being stupid. So there's sort of an understanding on the web. One picture, not too much trouble. Two pictures, not too much trouble. If there are 40 pictures of you at different events, each more messed up than the other, a pattern emerges.
Well, I'm not even talking about being messed up. I'm saying I'm not married, but let's say I was married and I told my wife I got to work late tonight, and instead I go to a bar and somebody takes a picture of me at the bar and then tags it. Now my wife's going to know that I've been out screwing around with my buddies at a bar.
And that's why detectives now are being trained heavily in how to use the web and the social web. because people are getting busted left and right. People are getting, they're getting busted in all sorts of technical ways now. You say that you're going one place, you go on a bridge and it's recorded. You go in a tunnel and it's recorded.
Right.
There is no such thing as privacy anymore. It just does not exist.
But do I really owe it to the world to let them know where I am every moment of my life? I mean, I'm kind of a transparent individual. My veracity is very important to me in my job, so therefore I try to be as straightforward as possible in my personal life as well, because, it's like the old story about Mark Furman. He lied about one thing. He said he never said the N-word, and then all of his great testimony against O.J. Simpson got tossed out in the minds of the jurors. So, but I don't really owe it to, the world to tell them everything I'm doing every moment of my life, do I?
You don't. It's opting out of the social network. Unfortunately, a lot of business is done in the social network now. Right. It's done somewhat on Facebook, definitely on LinkedIn. There's so much information that we put out there about ourselves that's just out in the world, and you have to come to the understanding that the world will know who I am and where I am. Now, you don't have to be on Foursquare 24/7 every time you step out the door announcing where you are or what you're doing, which a lot of people do. You have some control over your privacy, but not a whole hell of a lot.
Well, yeah, and then there are apps now. I could have an iPhone, and it'll tell everybody who's got an iPhone in the sushi bar that I'm at, that I'm there. And then all the people on iPhone can, which guy are you? Which woman are you? That kind of thing. I mean, I think it gets to the point, Jon Gelberg, that it's a little weird, actually, and intrusive.
It's also generational. I have sons 22 and 19. Mm-hmm. They couldn't care less about who knows where they are at what time. There is no expectation of privacy, no care about it. We grew up, I'm assuming we grew up at a very different time where we'd be stunned. I mean, what's natural to us now with the world knowing, we'd be, appalled.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that generation in particular, your children and my children, ought to be concerned about so that they don't screw up their opportunities for employment or higher education for the rest of their lives?
Hey, well, look, I do a lot of hiring, and I do look at social media pages, but I look at it in both directions. If there is, as I said earlier, if there's a real pattern with this, if the person shows an incredible lack of judgment through the photographs, through what they write, through what they say, sometimes depending on how out there, a philosophy or a political statement is, it can really be something that, will affect whether the person gets a job or not. On the other end, social media is so critical these days that if you find a candidate who uses it artfully, who demonstrates creativity, writing skills, we've counseled people just to go out there, put your best work out there, make sure that that the world sees it, because it's a great advertisement for who you are as a possible candidate and employee.
But you're giving your stuff away as well now.
Oh, sure, but if you think about it in terms of someone coming out of college, there's some portfolio of writing. If someone's done poetry, if they've done short stories, if they've blogged, all of these things give you a much better picture of a candidate than a resume.
Yeah, I actually saw a story today, I think it was, about and I've been following the debate about cover letters as well. That they are like so old school, but now they're even saying resumes are old school as well.
Well, I mean, when I look at it, resumes are important for certain basic information, but if the resume has, a link to a Facebook page, to a Twitter account, to whatever, I'll always click to those, and or to a portfolio. Generally, the resumes now are gateways to show where your real information is.
But our children who are underage, they're all experimenting with alcohol, at least with beer. Are they really ruining their chances of getting into that Ivy League university, even though they have a tremendously good academic record, and they've been involved in community programs to help the less fortunate, and then they do something stupid, to use the beer pong example, at a party where everybody else is drinking and they're 17 years of age. And is it actually true that a person who otherwise would have a clean, pristine resume would be turned down at some of these more prestigious
They'd be turned down at Brigham Young.
Well, for sure.
But
if they held hands with a member of the opposite sex,
right?
They'd be turned down at Brigham Young.
It's a pattern. I mean, I can't imagine an admissions officer who lives and works on a campus and walks around and knows exactly what the campus culture is to say, oh, my God, I'm not going to have someone here who had a drink at 17.
Right.
If there are 40, 50 pictures of the person looks like they spend their lives buzzed, it may be a pattern saying maybe this is a person we don't want in our university community. But, you really do get a pass for a few. And I think college admissions officers know that they want a diverse student body. They want interesting people. They don't want people who are just going to be rigid and uptight. So I don't think that one bad picture, if it's a crime scene, maybe something else.
Yeah.
But that one embarrassing picture is not going to make or break someone's candidacy. And frankly, in some cases, if someone has unbelievable academic credentials or whatever, it may be a relief to see that they actually have a life.
Yeah. Someday I'll tell you, John, about my crime scene photos. Fortunately, I was the photographer.
Okay.
But the guy who wasn't supposed to be there got captured by my lens and blew his alibi and ultimately was arrested. And, that was long before the social networking, but it's the same kind of thing. Man, there, as you point out, there's very little about us that is not public anymore. Jon Gelberg is our guest. He's with Blue Fountain Media. Our first caller is Jim. Jim's joining us from Michigan. Jim, welcome to News Talk Online on the Pal Talk News Network.
Okay, Gary, I'm not going to say I've been a person who has led a pristine life, even when I retired at my retirement party in front of my wife, my boss, who was a lady, said all the young ladies liked Jim, and Jim liked the young ladies. And there was no hands down that I had that kind of reputation. I can take my wife in the hospital now. There's 17 floors to it. The elevator door opens. There's not a lady or somebody that won't say hi to me. I was known through all 17 floors. Does that mean that I was...
How does your wife handle that, Jim?
She handles it okay. It's not a big deal. I won a dance contest 6 years ago with a professional dancer. Took first place. She says, I gave you permission. I'm glad you two won the trophy. The lady walks over and thanks my wife, and she says, I'll give you my trophy. My wife said, you had my husband. You can keep your trophy. No problem.
Right. So, I mean, but you don't really particularly care, is what you're saying, if your personal business is out there on the Internet because you have an understanding wife.
Well, that's the main deal right there. I even have an understanding son. I took him to our U of M football game. There's 110,000 people, full audience. This gorgeous blonde that knew me, that hadn't seen me in 5 years, said, Jim, where you been? I said, when I'm retired, I'm not at the hospital with you, so what am I going to do? My son knows his dad's popular.
Hey, you know what, John? This is a guy who I think is a bit of a hypochondriac, and he goes into the hospital just to run into the nurses. What do you think?
You know what? I'm going to, because this is going to be in the social network and on the air, I'm not going to say a word.
Oh, yeah. You're afraid it's going to come back to haunt you sometime
I'm not going to let anything haunt me.
Yeah. See how it works? Guys, I actually was on the air with a radio station yesterday morning, and I made a comparison. And when the words came out of my mouth, I said, "Well, wait a minute. Let me clarify that," because it sounded like I was comparing NATO to Al Qaeda, and I clearly was not. But I was making a comparison, and I used them both as examples, and I could just see. I heard my words come back at me, and I said, if somebody recorded that and posted it on the Internet, it would, out of context, it would sound like I was accusing NATO of being a terrorist organization, which I was not. But that's why, you have to be really careful about how you frame things these days. Let's go to Salma in California. Salma, welcome to News Talk Online on the Pal Talk News Network.
Thank you, Gary. Hello to everyone. Do I have a voice before you jump in?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, thank you. You know what bothers me about Weiner? You know what bothers me? He has a Persian wife, a beautiful woman, and they just got married, and she's pregnant, and she did not stand by him. Bravo, good for her. I wouldn't have either, like Hillary Clinton, and others. Every other day somebody comes out of closet or somebody admits to some, scandal they did. She did not stand by him, and I applaud her. I bow to her.
Well, we don't know whether she's standing by him or not, Salma. Maybe ultimately she will be. I mean, she's out of the country with the Secretary of State, and who knows? That's between the two of them. But the point is, Jon Gelberg from the Blue Fountain Media, you certainly, if you are a married man, don't want to do anything on the Internet that you do not want your wife to know that you are doing, because sooner or later you're going to get outed, right?
Pretty much, absolutely. You'd have to be oblivious, because if your wife isn't seeing it, a friend is, a colleague is. People are out there. I have no idea if my wife has ever Googled my name, but that's a power that spouses have now. And we joke. I work, with again. I'm similarly to the previous caller. I'm in a company where it seems that it's all 20-somethings, and they're pictures from parties or whatever. You just have to understand the context, and there has to be the same old, well before the net, the concept of trust. Either it's there or it's not.
You know what? And tell me whether this is fair, Jon Gelberg from Blue Fountain Media. I compare the Internet to living in a small town. When you're living in a small town, everybody knows your business. Now, because of the Internet, you could be living in a big city where you normally can operate with relative anonymity, or you could even be traveling to another environ where you might want to, as they say about Las Vegas, what, happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. But today, I think with the Internet, you almost have to have the mindset of someone who's living in a small town, knowing that, the neighbors are looking through the blinds at you to see how you are acting in your backyard in your hot tub.
It's a perfect analogy. The world is very small now, just in terms of what you do, every step you take. If you walk down the street in Manhattan, your photograph is taken 800 times.
Oh my God! I
so
know. Do you know how many cameras there are? I mean, I've seen some figures about that. You can't walk in Lower Manhattan. You around the financial district. You can't walk around Times Square. Every little step that you take, there's no place where you can go where you're not going to be videotaped. It's a wide net and it's omnipresent.
It's frightening to me, but it's never going to change. It's a reality of life now.
Yeah, it is. I think you're right. Cassandra in the United Kingdom, where I think they also photograph everybody, including their license plates when they enter a certain area of London. Welcome to News Talk Online on the Pal Talk News Network.
Yes, thank you very much, Gary. And hello, John. Yes, they do. And Obama still owes the congestion charge for London when he brought his entourage over here. So we've got his number, though. So don't worry. What I wanted to ask John is, it's one thing if a person decides that they're going to disclose information about themselves, and then it gets copied and it gets misused. What is the redress, and how do you mitigate when a company is targeted online and its reputation is in some ways commented on in a very negative way that actually affects
Cassandra, that is a terrific question. That's a great question, and it had not entered my mind to ask Jon Gelberg that, but I'm glad you did, because, John, we see this all the time. Somebody's got, their nose out of joint because of something that a company has done, and they seek redress in the public forum, and sometimes that's good because they have a legitimate complaint, and the company is then motivated to correct whatever it is that the person was complaining about. But on the other hand, that could really be abused, and you could really ruin the reputation of a company and even put them out of business.
Oh, absolutely. Most of the work we do are not with individual reputations, but with company reputations.
Uh-huh.
And basically what you're looking at, it's a case-by-case problem, because you have to make the decision, do I respond? And when you start getting into, essentially a pissing match, when back and forth in forums, it can be a dangerous thing. But if you're responsive and you say, if you had this experience with our company, we're very concerned and we'd like to address it, can we take this offline? That has worked very well for companies and has really turned around some negative comments. Some of the airlines, Southwest Airlines, JetBlue Airlines, have been extremely good about monitoring customer complaints online and saying, here I am stuck at the airport again, and then in real time addressing it and saying, we feel terrible that your plane is delayed, but this was not within our power, this was a weather delay, and it was done by the, and just getting into the conversation, or if there was an actual mistake made, can we please give you an upgrade on your next flight? First of all, that is public. It shows that you listen to your customers and your clients, and that you're finding solutions. No company is perfect, and when companies, we discussed earlier, transparency, when you say, you know what, we're upset with that this employee handled you in this way, it will not happen again, what can we do to keep your loyalty?
This company that I work for, Pal Talk, you get instant feedback. I do on my show all the time. I'm clearly not thin-skinned about it, but I used to do customer service. I was the system ombudsman, and that's exactly what I would do. People could be madder than a wet hen, and I don't even know, I've never seen a wet hen mad, but I've heard the phrase, so I will use it whether it's accurate description or not. But if you at least showed people that you're honestly interested in listening to them, that's half the battle.
And it really works extremely well online. Look, some people will never be satisfied. And sometimes you do have to have a thick skin. And another thing that we always advise companies is that there will always be negative statements out there. But if you can overwhelm the negative with positive, then people who go to the web and look, they say, okay, 95% of the people are happy, or 95% of the news about your company is positive. And there are ways of going about generating positive content. And that's one of the things that we really advise clients on, which is get your message out there, whether it's blogging your own website, participating on other websites, being a guest blogger on industry blogs, that where your clients and potential clients would be. And it's a great way to bolster your online presence.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. Let's go. Oh, did we lose Riley? Did Riley drop off, our next caller? Is Anthony, what would you be telling Anthony Weiner right now if you were advising him, John?
Well, let's start with this. He's not going to clean up his online persona.
He's going to continue?
No. What I'm saying is that the damage is done there.
Right.
Now, if you look at, let's say, Elliot Spitzer, for example, he's come back. He will never have the opportunities in government that he once had, but he has rehabilitated his image by doing great things and great work.
Right.
This goes under, classic PR crisis management. And in a case like this, he's taken the first step late. He had terrible advice or ignored advice early on, where denial.
Right.
But now he's finally cleared that. That hurdle has been cleared.
Look, he broke no law as far as we know. He didn't even break the public trust as far as we know.
Right.
So, this is a personal transgression by a public figure. And I'm not saying that because he's a public figure, but, we should ignore it because it's a personal transgression. I see that it's a story. But had he come out when the questions were asked and either said, look, what you're discussing is between me, the women, and my wife, I'll have no comment, or if he said, yeah, I did it, so what? Wouldn't that have been the end of it right then and there?
Well, if you look at almost every major recent political scandal, it's been more the cover-up than the act itself.
Right.
And
because I used to. Excuse me, John, but I used to advise public safety agencies on public relations, and I used to tell them, get out in front of it. Don't, the more you obfuscate when the media are asking you questions, the more they smell a story and then skewer you for not being responsive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he's got a long way to go. It will help, depending on how he patches things in his relationship, where that leads. But then, he's an incredibly bright guy.
He's a smart guy, no doubt about it.
And you'd hate to see a career ended because of this. But, he's also a young guy. He's got a long way to go. And, he's in a position where he can get back and make a difference in the world.
Well, since this show is on the Internet and it is archived and podcasted later, your words will probably resonate with Anthony Weiner. And the thing that you said that may ultimately resonate the most is, I do a lot of hiring here. Jon Gelberg from Blue Fountain Media, thanks for joining us on News Talk Online on the Pal Talk News Network.